She lay there in silence, surrounded by machines that spoke for her. No words, no movement, no promises she would ever wake up. But beside her bed, an old dog waited. He didn't bark, he didn't beg. He just stayed, breathing with her, watching her chest rise, believing when no one else could. In that quiet hospital room, something passed between them that had no language. Pain, love, memory, hope. Before she ever spoke again, the dog had already heard her. If you believe some bonds don't need words, share this story, leave a comment, and subscribe, because the quietest love is often the strongest. Snow had been falling since dawn, soft at first, then heavier, swallowing the quiet suburban streets of Colorado in white silence. The air was sharp, clean, and unforgiving, the kind of cold that crept into bones without asking permission. The Miller house glowed warmly against the storm. Yellow light spilled from its windows, fogging the glass and turning the falling snow into drifting sparks. Inside, the smell of chicken soup and baked bread clung to the air, wrapping the room in a fragile sense of safety that winter had not yet claimed. Sarah Miller stood at the stove, stirring slowly, her movements practiced and calm. She was a tall, slender woman in her mid-30s, with chestnut brown hair tied loosely at the nape of her neck, strands already escaping to frame her face. Her skin was pale, almost translucent in the kitchen light, and faint freckles dusted her cheeks and nose. There was a quiet strength in her posture, a steadiness shaped by years of holding a family together through small storms and unspoken worries. Tonight, though, a crease lingered between her brows, subtle but present. John Miller leaned against the counter nearby, arms folded, watching her. He was broad-shouldered, built from years of physical work, with sharp cheekbones and a jaw usually hidden beneath a neatly trimmed beard now flecked with gray. At 40, his face carried the marks of laughter and exhaustion in equal measure. His eyes, a calm steel blue, softened whenever they moved toward his daughter. John had once been louder, quicker to smile, quicker to speak. An accident at work years earlier, one that took a close friend and nearly his own life, had quieted him, taught him the weight of silence and the value of presence. At the kitchen table sat Lily. Lily Miller was 7 years old, small for her age, with a slight frame wrapped in an oversized sweater that belonged to her mother. Her hair, a pale golden blonde, fell in soft waves past her shoulders, often tangled no matter how carefully Sarah brushed it. Her eyes were wide and curious, the same blue as her father's, always searching for something new. Tonight, she was bent over a sheet of construction paper, tongue pressed between her teeth in concentration as she colored. Beside her sat Sunny. Sunny was a golden retriever, nearly 8 years old, his once brilliant coat now dulled slightly with age, but still thick and warm. His fur was a deep honey gold, darker along his back and lighter around his face, where gray had begun to appear around the muzzle. His ears hung low and soft, and his dark brown eyes followed Lily's every movement. Sunny had been with the family since Lily was a toddler, growing older alongside her, learning her moods, her fears, her laughter. He was gentle by nature, patient in a way that felt almost human, and fiercely devoted to the little girl who wrapped her arms around his neck every night before bed. Lily looked up from her drawing and held the paper toward him. "Sunny, look, I made you a crown." Sunny tilted his head, ears perking, tail thumping softly against the floor. He sniffed the paper, then licked Lily's cheek, earning a giggle that rang brighter than the clink of spoons or the hum of the heater. Sarah smiled at the sound, though it didn't fully reach her eyes. "Careful, sweetheart. He's going to think he's royalty." "He already is," Lily said seriously. "He protects us." Sonny shifted closer to her chair, resting his chin on her knee, as if acknowledging the duty. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Snow pressed harder against the glass, blurring the outlines of neighboring houses until the world beyond the walls seemed to disappear. John straightened and glanced toward the window. "It's getting worse." Sarah followed his gaze. "We could wait. Whatever it is, it can be tomorrow." John hesitated. He had promised Lily they would visit her grandparents' house on the other side of town. Nothing urgent, nothing worth risking a drive through worsening weather. Still, something about breaking routine unsettled him. "The roads were cleared earlier," he said, though his voice lacked certainty. Sonny rose suddenly, moving toward the front door. He stood there, nose close to the seam beneath it, breathing deeply. A low sound rumbled in his chest. Not a growl, not a bark, but something uneasy. Lily noticed immediately. "Sonny?" She slid from her chair and patted across the floor. "What's wrong?" Sonny turned, eyes wide, tail still, body tense. He pressed his head into Lily's stomach, nudging her back gently, as if trying to keep her away from the door. Sarah's brow furrowed. "That's strange." "He never does that." John crouched beside the dog, scratching behind his ears. "Hey boy, it's okay." Sonny didn't relax. For a moment, the kitchen felt smaller. The hum of the heater grew louder. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold outside. "John," she said quietly, "maybe we shouldn't—" The wind howled, cutting her off. Snow struck the windows in sudden bursts like thrown gravel. Lily wrapped her arms around Sonny's neck. "It's okay," she whispered into his fur. "We'll be back soon." Sonny licked her hands, then her face, whimpering softly. Dinner was eaten quickly, conversation lighter than usual, laughter trying to outrun the unease. Sarah packed leftovers into containers she didn't expect to need. John pulled on his coat, thick and worn, checking his phone for road updates that offered little comfort. Before they left, Lily knelt and pressed her forehead against Sonny's. "Guard the house," she said solemnly. Sonny stayed by the door as they stepped outside, snow crunching beneath their boots. The cold hit hard, stealing breath. Sarah pulled her scarf tighter, glancing once more at the sky. From the porch, Sonny watched as the family climbed into the car. His tail wagged once, then stopped. The engine started. Headlights cut through the storm. As the car backed out of the driveway, Sonny barked a sharp, urgent sound that startled even himself. Lily turned in her seat, pressing her face to the rear window. "Bye, Sonny," she mouthed. The car moved down the street, red taillights shrinking as snow swallowed them whole. Sonny stood frozen, chest tight, ears flat, until the lights vanished entirely. Then the wind rose again, louder than before. The storm closed in quickly once the car left the neighborhood. Snow thickened, blurring the edges of the road until the world ahead seemed unfinished, as if someone had erased parts of it and forgotten to redraw them. John gripped the steering wheel harder, his shoulders tight beneath his heavy coat, eyes narrowed in focus. He had always believed control came from vigilance, from watching carefully enough to prevent the worst. Sarah sat beside him, hands folded in her lap. The dashboard light caught the sharp line of her cheekbones and the faint shadows under her eyes. She was quiet now, listening to the wind batter the car, her earlier unease settling deep in her chest. In the back seat, Lily leaned against the window, tracing invisible shapes on the fogged glass, humming softly to herself. The road dipped slightly near the highway curve. The car never made it through. The impact came without warning, metal screaming against ice, the world snapping sideways. The sound was violent, unnatural, a collision of forces that did not belong together. John felt the wheel jerk violently from his hands. Sarah reached for Lily, instinct overriding thought. Snow and glass exploded inward. Then everything fractured into silence. When the car finally stopped moving, it sat twisted at an angle against the guardrail, its front crushed, headlights blinking weakly through the storm. Snow poured into the wreckage, settling where warmth still lingered. Sirens arrived like distant ghosts, blue and red lights flashing through the whiteout. Emergency responders moved quickly, boots crunching, voices sharp and controlled. One of them, a man in his late 30s with a square jaw and tired eyes, knelt beside the driver's door. His name was Ethan Brooks, an EMT with years of night shifts etched into his posture. He had learned to move calmly through chaos, though some nights still followed him home. "Two adults," someone called out. "No pulse." Ethan swallowed and turned away, already moving toward the back seat. Lily lay slumped against the door, her small body frighteningly still. Her blonde hair was matted with blood and snow, her face pale beneath streaks of red. Ethan checked her pulse, then her breathing. It was there, weak, uneven, but present. "We've got a child. She's alive." They moved fast then. Lily was lifted carefully onto a stretcher, oxygen mask pressed over her face. As they carried her toward the ambulance, a sound cut through the wind-raw, desperate barking. Sonny burst from the snow, fur soaked and clumped with ice, his body trembling from shock. Blood darkened one side of his head where he had struck the pavement. He ran in uneven bursts, slipping, scrambling, refusing to fall behind. When the ambulance doors opened, he lunged forward, barking wildly, nails scraping against the metal. "Hey, someone grab the dog!" a responder shouted. Sonny dodged clumsy hands, circling the stretcher, whining sharply, his eyes locked onto Lily's pale face. He leapt once, paws striking the side of the gurney before slipping back into the snow. Ethan hesitated just a second too long. The doors slammed shut. The ambulance pulled away, lights cutting through the storm, carrying Lily toward the hospital. Sonny chased it, legs burning, lungs aching, barking until his throat felt raw. Snow swallowed the sound. The road curved. The lights disappeared. Sonny slowed, then stopped. He stood alone on the frozen highway, chest heaving, tail low. The world felt suddenly too large, too empty. He sniffed the ground frantically, circling the wreck, searching for something, anything that still smelled like home. But the storm erased everything, covering tire tracks, footprints, blood. Hours later, the hospital glowed white against the dark sky. Lily was rushed into intensive care, wires and tubes replacing the warmth of her mother's arms. Machines hummed steadily, indifferent and precise. Doctors spoke in low voices. One of them, Dr. Kevin Patel, a pediatric neurologist with gentle eyes and carefully measured words, reviewed the scans twice before speaking. "She has a severe traumatic brain injury," he said. "She's in a coma. We don't know if or when she'll wake up." The words landed heavily. Later that night, Amanda Parker arrived. She was Sarah's older sister, a woman worn thin by responsibility long before grief found her. Her dark hair was pulled into a hurried ponytail, streaked with gray she didn't bother hiding. Lines framed her mouth, deepened by years of worry. She smelled faintly of cold air and stale coffee, her coat too light for the weather. She stood at Lily's bedside, staring at the small body beneath the blankets, chest rising only with the help of machines. Her hands shook as she signed the temporary guardianship papers, the pen slipping once before she steadied it. She told herself she was being strong. She had children of her own. She knew how to survive. But when she looked at Lily, so small and silent, something inside her fractured. Outside, snow continued to fall. Sunny never made it to the hospital. By the time responders returned to the crash site, the road was empty. Snow covered the wreckage, smoothing it into something almost peaceful. No paw prints remained. Somewhere beyond the highway lights, Sunny moved through the storm, guided only by scent and memory, following the last place he had seen the girl who was his world. The days blurred together after the funeral, measured not in hours, but in hospital visiting times and unpaid bills. Amanda Parker learned quickly how exhaustion could hollow a person out. She moved between places like a ghost home before dawn to pack lunches, hospital by mid-morning, work in the afternoon, then back again after dark. Her shoulders were always tense, her jaw set, as if bracing for an impact that never quite came but was always expected. Amanda was 42, shorter than her sister Sarah had been, with a sturdier build shaped by years of practical living rather than grace. Her dark hair, once carefully styled, now lived in a permanent ponytail streaked with premature gray. Her skin was rough from winter air and cheap soap. Her eyes permanently rimmed red, not always from crying, but from lack of sleep. She loved fiercely, but fear lived just beneath that love, whispering constantly about what she might lose next. At the hospital, Lily remained unchanged. The machines breathed for her. Tubes and wires traced over her small body like foreign vines. Amanda would sit by the bed, holding Lily's limp hand, studying the faint freckles on her niece's nose. Sometimes she spoke softly, recounting ordinary things, what Emma had said at breakfast, how Noah lost another glove, how Mason asked when Lily would wake up. She spoke because silence felt dangerous. At home, life did not pause. Amanda's 3 children filled the small house with noise and mess and need. Noah, 11, tall and restless, had learned too early how to watch his mother's face for signs of bad news. Emma, 8, quiet and observant, carried her worry in silence. Mason, 4, asked questions Amanda didn't have answers to. The house was already stretched thin, every corner occupied, every dollar accounted for before it even arrived. Then Sunny was found. Animal control called late one evening. A golden retriever had been spotted near the highway, thin, limping, refusing to leave the area. The description hit Amanda like a blow to the chest. She picked him up the next morning. Sunny looked nothing like the dog she remembered. His golden coat was matted with dirt and ice, fur clumped and dull. One ear drooped at an odd angle, and a shallow gash on his head had crusted over without care. He was thinner, ribs faintly visible beneath his fur, but his eyes were the same dark, alert, searching. When Amanda opened the car door, Sonny didn't bark. He simply stared at her, tail giving one weak wag, as if unsure whether she was real. At home, Sonny followed Amanda from room to room, moving carefully, quietly. He slept curled near the door, as though waiting to be called back out into the storm. At night, he whimpered in his sleep, paws twitching, chasing something he could not reach. Amanda tried. She fed him, cleaned his wounds, washed his collar, the same worn leather Lily had decorated with stickers years ago. She took him with her on hospital visits, leaving him in the car while she sat beside Lily's bed. Each time she returned, Sonny lifted his head, eyes hopeful, as if expecting Lily to step out behind her. The guilt was relentless. Sonny was not a problem, not really. He was gentle with the children, patient even when Mason tugged his tail. But his presence was heavy, a constant reminder of Sarah, of the life that had ended so violently. Every time Amanda looked at him, she saw her sister's kitchen, her niece's laughter, a future that no longer existed. Money ran out faster than patience. The vet bill alone made Amanda's hands shake. The hospital called again, asking about payment plans, long-term care options. Her job began cutting hours. The house felt smaller by the day, walls closing in with every unanswered question. Late one night, Amanda sat at the kitchen table, head in her hands. Sonny lay at her feet, warm and solid, breathing steadily. He rested his chin against her knee, just as he had done with Lily. "I can't," Amanda whispered. "I don't know how to do all of this." Sonny lifted his head, ears twitching at the sound of her voice. The decision did not come all at once. It crept in quietly, disguised as reason, as survival. She told herself Sonny would be better off somewhere else. Someone else. Someone with more space, more money, fewer ghosts. The morning she chose was bitterly cold. Amanda loaded Sonny into the car before the children woke. He climbed in without resistance, tail wagging once, trusting as ever. The road out of town was empty, lined with frozen fields and bare trees. Frost clung to the windshield despite the heater running full blast. She stopped near a wide stretch of roadside, far enough from traffic that the sound of cars was distant. Snow blanketed everything, clean and indifferent. Amanda opened the door. "Stay," she said, voice breaking. Sonny stepped out, turning back immediately, confused. He watched as Amanda closed the door, hands shaking. For a moment, she stayed there, forehead pressed against the steering wheel, breath coming in short bursts. Then she drove away. In the side mirror, Sonny grew smaller and smaller, standing alone in the snow, watching the car disappear. He did not chase it. He simply stood there, ears low, waiting, certain she would come back. The road stayed empty. The road was nearly empty when Ethan Brooks drove home that night, his headlights carving a narrow tunnel through the falling snow. His shift had ended late. Another 12 hours of sirens, clipped voices, and faces he would never fully forget. He loosened his grip on the steering wheel only when the town limits faded behind him, replaced by long, quiet stretches of roadside where nothing moved except the wind. That was when he saw the shape. At first, it looked like a pile of rags half buried in snow. Then it shifted. Ethan slowed instinctively, pulling over onto the shoulder. He stepped out into the cold, boots sinking into the crusted ice. The air bit through his jacket. A golden retriever lay curled close to the ditch, body trembling so hard its ribs rattled beneath matted fur. One ear drooped unnaturally, and dried blood darkened the fur near his temple. His eyes opened at the sound of footsteps, alert despite exhaustion, wary but not aggressive. "Hey, boy," Ethan said softly. The dog didn't move. He didn't growl or bare his teeth. He simply watched, breathing shallow and fast, as if every inhale required permission from the cold. Ethan crouched slowly. Years as an EMT had taught him how to approach pain, human or otherwise, without making it worse. The dog smelled of road salt and fear. His once golden coat dulled to a dirty amber. He was older, Ethan guessed. 7, maybe 8. Too old to be out here alone. "You've been through hell," Ethan murmured. The dog tried to stand and failed, front legs buckling beneath him. Ethan didn't hesitate. He shrugged off his coat and wrapped it carefully around the trembling body, lifting him with both arms. The dog was lighter than he should have been. At home, the small house greeted them with silence. Ethan lived alone, a deliberate choice made years ago after a marriage that hadn't survived the long nights and longer absences. He was 38 now, broad-shouldered, with a face worn by fatigue and restraint. His dark hair was perpetually uncombed. His beard kept short not for style, but because it was easier. He was gentle with strangers and distant with himself, shaped by a career that demanded empathy without offering much room to rest. He laid the dog on an old blanket near the heater, fetched water, then food. The dog sniffed cautiously before eating, pausing every few bites as if listening for something beyond the walls. Ethan cleaned the wound on his head, hands steady. The dog flinched but didn't resist. When Ethan finished, he rested a hand on the broad chest, feeling the heartbeat fast but strong. "You're safe," Ethan said, though he wasn't sure who he was trying to convince. The dog slept for hours, curled tightly, nose tucked beneath his tail. Ethan watched from the couch, the TV playing without sound. He told himself this was temporary. He would take the dog to a shelter once the storm passed. That was the sensible thing. Morning light proved him wrong. The dog woke quietly, lifting his head and scanning the room. When he saw Ethan, his tail thumped once against the floor. Just once. It was not joy, more like recognition. Ethan took him to the vet later that day. Dr. Helen Moore, a woman in her 50s, with silver hair pulled into a neat bun and hands permanently smelling of antiseptic, examined the dog carefully. She spoke in a calm, practical voice, as if bad news should never be dramatic. "He's dehydrated, malnourished," she said. "Head injury looks old. He's lucky." "Owner?" Ethan asked. Dr. Moore shook her head. "No chip. Collar's worn. He belonged to someone." Ethan nodded, a familiar ache settling in his chest. He named the dog Sunny after noticing how the animal gravitated toward the light spilling through windows, always positioning himself where the sun lingered longest. Sunny recovered slowly. His strength returned in increment short walks, steadier steps, deeper sleep. But something in him remained restless. At night, Sunny paced. He would stand by the front door, ears pricked, nose pressed to the crack beneath it. Sometimes he let out a low bark, muffled and uncertain, aimed not at the yard, but toward the distance. Other nights, he whimpered in his sleep, legs twitching as if running toward something just out of reach. Ethan began to notice patterns. Sonny grew agitated whenever the wind howled, whenever sirens passed in the distance. He calmed only when Ethan sat beside him, hand resting on his back. "You're waiting for someone," Ethan said one night, not really asking. Sonny looked at him, then really looked, eyes dark and heavy with longing. Days passed. Snow fell again. Each evening, Ethan drove the same route home, and each evening, Sonny watched from the window as if memorizing the road. Ethan felt it too, the pull of something unresolved. He didn't know where it led, only that it wasn't finished. Outside, the storm thickened, and somewhere beyond the quiet streets, something waited to be found. The change came before dawn. Sonny had been pacing since midnight, nails clicking softly against the hardwood floor, breath coming in quick, uneven bursts. Ethan stirred on the couch, half awake, listening. The house felt different, charged, restless, as if the walls themselves were waiting for something to happen. When Sonny finally barked, it wasn't loud. It was sharp, urgent, and unmistakably afraid. Ethan sat up. "What is it, boy?" Sonny ran to the door, then back to Ethan, tugging at the hem of his sleeve with gentle insistence. His tail was stiff, his ears pinned back, eyes fixed with a focus Ethan hadn't seen before. This wasn't anxiety, it was certainty. Outside, snow fell in thin, relentless sheets. The streetlights cast long shadows over the empty road. Ethan hesitated only a second before grabbing his keys. Years as an EMT had trained him to recognize panic, but also to recognize when instinct was trying to say something words could not. "All right," he said quietly. "Show me." Sonny burst forward the moment the door opened, nearly pulling the leash from Ethan's hand. He moved with purpose, ignoring side streets, cutting clean paths through the snow as if following a map only he could see. Ethan jogged to keep up, breath clouding in the cold, heart thudding for reasons he couldn't explain. They crossed 4 blocks, then 6. The hospital came into view, its windows glowing pale against the gray morning. Sonny stopped abruptly, barking loud now, insistent, throwing his weight toward the entrance. Ethan stared at the building, recognition hitting him hard. He had been here before, too many times. "No," Ethan murmured, more to himself than to Sonny. "You can't know." But Sonny did know. Inside, the warmth was immediate, heavy with antiseptic and recycled air. A nurse stepped forward, already frowning. Rachel Kim, mid-30s, hair pulled into a tight bun, had the look of someone who ran on caffeine and responsibility alone. She glanced at Sonny, then at Ethan. "You can't bring a dog in here," she said sharply. "He won't be a problem," Ethan replied, voice calm but firm. "He needs to see someone." Rachel hesitated, eyes flicking between the man's EMT jacket and the dog's trembling body. "5 minutes," she said finally. "That's it." Sonny didn't wait. He pulled Ethan down the hall, past muted monitors and closed doors, stopping only when they reached a room near the end. He barked once short, pleading, and pressed his nose to the door. Inside, Lily lay still. She looked smaller than Ethan remembered from the night of the accident. Her blonde hair had been brushed neatly, her face pale beneath the soft glow of the overhead light. Tubes traced from her small body to machines that hummed steadily, indifferent to hope or despair. Her hand lay open atop the blanket, fingers slightly curled. Sonny froze in the doorway. Then he moved forward slowly, carefully, as if afraid she might disappear if he went too fast. He climbed onto the bed with surprising gentleness, curling beside her, his head resting against her wrist. A low sound escaped his chest. Not quite a whine, not quite a bark. It was grief and relief, tangled together. Ethan stood back, throat tight. The monitor beeped once, then again. At first, it sounded like nothing. A fluctuation, a coincidence. But Rachel stiffened, eyes snapping to the screen. "Wait," she said. "That's new." Lily's fingers twitched. Sonny lifted his head instantly, tail thumping weakly against the mattress. He nudged Lily's hand with his nose, then licked her fingers once, softly, reverently. Ethan felt his knees weaken. The machine's rhythm changed, subtle but undeniable. Rachel stepped back into the hallway, voice already calling for a doctor. Footsteps echoed, doors opened, the room filled with motion, controlled and urgent. Through it all, Sonny stayed. Lily's eyelids fluttered, just once. Her lips parted, a sound barely forming. Sonny. The name was a breath, but it was real. Ethan closed his eyes, swallowing hard. He had seen miracles before, people surviving odds that should have ended them. But this felt different. This felt earned. In the hallway, a woman stood frozen. Amanda Parker had arrived early that morning, drawn back to the hospital by something she couldn't explain. She stood now with one hand pressed to her mouth, eyes locked on the scene unfolding through the glass. Her shoulders shook as understanding hit her all at once. Sonny hadn't been abandoned. He had been waiting. Snow continued to fall outside, quiet and unremarkable. Inside the room, the machines kept humming, but their sound no longer felt final. Something had shifted, small, fragile, but alive. Lily woke slowly, as if surfacing from deep water. At first, there was only sensation, the steady warmth against her hand, the familiar rhythm of breathing beside her. Her eyelids fluttered, heavy and uncooperative. Light leaked in, soft and pale. Somewhere close, something warm shifted. "Sonny," she whispered again, the sound barely strong enough to exist. Her fingers moved. This time, it was not an accident. The monitor reacted immediately, its tone changing just enough to draw sharp attention. Nurses rushed in, followed by doctors, voices low but urgent. Dr. Kevin Patel stepped to Lily's side, his expression cautious but unmistakably stunned. He had spent his career learning not to believe in sudden turns, yet here was one unfolding beneath his hands. "Lily," he said gently, "can you hear me?" Her brow furrowed. The effort showed on her face, confusion, pain, fear, but also awareness. Tears slid from the corners of her eyes, silent and unstoppable. Sonny lifted his head, tail thumping weakly, and pressed his nose to her cheek. Lily turned toward him, breath hitching. "I dreamed you," she murmured. Amanda stood frozen near the doorway, unable to step forward. The sight shattered her defenses. Her knees buckled, and she sank into a chair, hands covering her face as sobs broke free. Raw, unfiltered, months of guilt and grief finally finding air. She had told herself she was protecting her children. She had told herself Sonny would survive without her. She had been wrong. Ethan watched from the foot of the bed, arms folded tightly across his chest, as if holding himself together. He had seen patients wake before. He had seen families reunited. But this felt different. This felt like something returning that should never have been lost. Over the next hours, Lily's awareness strengthened. She squeezed Sonny's fur when the room felt overwhelming. She clung to Ethan's sleeve when fear surged. Her voice was weak, but it was there, real, living, undeniable. Dr. Patel spoke carefully when the chaos settled. "This doesn't mean she's out of danger," he said. "Recovery will be long, but this is significant." No one argued. Sonny was allowed to stay. Days passed, marked by small victories. Lily opened her eyes more often. She spoke in short sentences. She smiled once, just a flicker, but it was enough to make Amanda cry all over again. Sonny rarely left her side. He slept curled against her legs, alert even in rest, as if guarding something sacred. Amanda changed too. She arrived early every morning now, hair brushed, eyes clearer, despite exhaustion. She brought books Lily liked, a soft blanket from home, photographs salvaged from boxes she had avoided opening. One afternoon, she knelt beside Sonny, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry," she said. "I was afraid. I thought letting go was the only way." Sonny watched her quietly. Then he rested his head against her knee. Forgiveness, offered, without condition. When Lily was strong enough to leave the hospital, winter still ruled the streets. Snow lined the sidewalks, and the air burned with cold. Ethan helped wheel her outside, Sonny trotting ahead, leash loose. Lily laughed softly when the cold touched her face. "Home," she said. The house Amanda lived in was still small, still crowded, but it no longer felt impossible. Sonny claimed his place immediately, settling near Lily's bed at night, following her during the day as her strength returned step by step. Ethan visited often at first, then less as life found its rhythm again. On his last visit before spring, Lily hugged him tightly. "You didn't look away," she told him. Ethan smiled, a rare, unguarded thing. Neither did he. Outside, the snow began to melt. Sometimes God does not arrive with thunder or fire. Sometimes he comes quietly, through loyalty, through love that refuses to leave, through a heart that keeps waiting when the world walks away. This miracle did not begin in a hospital room. It began the moment someone chose not to turn away, and a soul chose to stay faithful even when abandoned. In our daily lives, we pass moments like this more often than we realize. A choice to stop, to care, to listen, to love when it is inconvenient. And sometimes that small choice becomes the doorway through which God works his greatest wonders. If this story touched your heart, may God bless you and those you love. May he protect the broken, guide the weary, and remind us that no act of compassion is ever wasted. Please share this story so it can reach someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us where you are watching from, or share a prayer for those who are still waiting for their miracle. And if you believe that love, faith, and kindness still matter, subscribe to the channel and walk this journey with us. May God watch over you, and may no soul, human or animal, ever feel abandoned again.